And a very happy Friday to you folks out there. The playoffs are underway. The fantasy playoffs are underway. I was upset. It was just like all the people out there who are complaining about the product and this and that and like to crap on football. Too much ammunition for them. That was a really dreadful game last night. But you know what? I actually ended up being pretty good for fantasy, except for Austin Eckler, I suppose.
Right. You can make a list of all the players who disappointed us in fantasy. Austin Eckler.
Yeah.
End of list.
Right. Really weird, actually.
How about a 2-year low in snap percentage played for Austin Eckler?
Well, look, all right. Happy Friday. Good morning. What's up? Let me sum up the show. I got a lot of beat the waiver wire for those of you who are on a bye or you started the Raiders DST and you're guaranteed to win. If you want to beat the waiver, I got a lot of that. We got 8 games, Baltimore at Jacksonville, and then the 7 NFC home games. And you know the drill. So I think hopefully we don't spend too much time on this game. Because let me just ask you this. Did anything that happened last night in a 63-21 game, Jamie, did anything that happened last night influence how you might rank your Chargers and your Raiders next week?
So I was concerned about Eckler going into the game because of the lack of talent around him. I certainly did not expect that. I did not expect, and it wasn't just because of the score. It was from the beginning. They were rotating in a little bit of Isaiah Spiller with Joshua Kelly. So, I said this, maybe it was Sunday after or Tuesday after Herbert's injury. And I got some pushback on it that the Chargers should just shut down their guys at this point. Like, what are they doing? And I don't know how much of that was Keenan Allen. If they're in a playoff hunt, does he push through the injury and play? Or how much of it is, just he's actually hurt? And I don't want to speculate because that's not my business. But what do they have to gain at this point? Is Austin Eckler's contract changing on what he's doing in this current framework of what this team is? Is Keenan Allen's future changing? Like, play the young guys. If you're Tom Telesco and you're still going to be the GM there, Brandon Staley obviously is not going to be there. Like, you're just not helping your franchise by running out those guys to just maybe get them injured if they're going to be somewhat part of your future. So I'm not trusting Austin Eckler with what this offense looks like right now. No way.
What about Josh Palmer? What about Jacoby Myers? Zamir White going forward if he gets another chance here? Obviously, Devontae Adams is looking good, but the players that, Dave, that's maybe surprised us.
He still doesn't catch touchdowns from Aiden O'Connell, though.
He does. It's true. But, he still has a nice role and at least is a number 2 receiver. But, the players that surprised us, like forget Quentin Johnson with the garbage time touchdown, but Josh Palmer, 42% rostered. In case you missed it, he had a 79-yard touchdown catch. That was most of his production. Zamir White gets Kansas City next week if Jacobs is out again. And Jacoby Myers, 49% started. I don't pay too much attention to start percentages once half the league has been eliminated. And Michael Mayer, do any of them matter to you next week, or is it still just the Jacobs and Adams show?
I still will rank Adams as a number 2 receiver. I'll rank Myers as a PPR low-end flex. I'll rank maybe a middle-end flex just because the Raiders are probably going to be in either a competitive game or trailing against Kansas City. Zamir White, low-end starting running back, probably like more top 30 than top 24. And Michael Mayer, desperation tight end. I don't think anything's changing to the point where it's like, wow, this Raiders offense is finally going to kick into high gear. They played ultimately they were a disinterested Chargers defense that was forced to go on the field so much because of all the turnovers the offense had.
There's not a thing that changed for me about the Raiders whatsoever. Not a thing. They went from being shut out a week ago, and then they got to go to Kansas City next week. It's fool's gold if you're chasing the Raiders to do this again. So Myers back to the bench. Congratulations, you had a standout performance with 2 big plays. Adams back to being a number 2 receiver, where he's going to see a lot of Snead next week if he's healthy. Zamir White, no chance. I'm starting him in the semifinals of the playoffs. Barely a flex at best if he's still the guy there. I mean, there's nothing should change about the Raiders at all from this game.
Okay, well, at least if you're a Raiders fan, you're feeling pretty good. Remember,
you should feel great. Look, the best thing you should feel good about is you might have your coach.
Yeah, we'll see. It doesn't matter. They have such a bad roster. I mean, I was thinking about it. It's like they can cycle through coaches all they want. They just had that graphic of their first round picks. that team has drafted so poorly.
Yeah, but that's
So-
not on the current GM.
No,
and
it's not. It's not. It's just it doesn't like they need better players. They just don't have a good enough team. But yeah, that was an ugly game last night with the Chargers. I don't know if Brandon Staley makes it through this podcast. It would not shock me at all. Seriously, like we got an alert on our phone that Brandon Staley's out. That was just rock bottom. All right, hopefully they can do what the Broncos did when they gave up 70 to the Dolphins and turn their season around. But I mean, not to the point where they're in playoff contention, but at least get motivated and play better. We've got a lot of great content for you over the weekend. You can ask us questions on Twitter with Ask FFT, that hashtag. We've got Fantasy Football Today on CBS Sports HQ at 10 a.m. Eastern on Sunday to help you get your lineup set. They do an amazing job in a short period of time, giving you a lot of information. And it's a really good show. So check it out. CBS Sports HQ on the CBS Sports app, 10 a.m. Sunday, Fantasy Football Today. And if you want to catch our live stream, it's at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, youtube.com/Fantasy Football Today. Please join us. We have great crowds on Sunday mornings. We got a ton of questions answered, and we have fun. News and notes. Geno Smith is trending in the right direction here. This is a Monday night game, so that's the only, danger here. Well, it's a little dangerous to start Geno Smith anyway. But have you guys ranked Geno Smith? And if so, where, Dave Richard?
Haven't ranked him yet, but he would be a top 15 quarterback if he ends up continuing to practice all week. This Eagles pass defense has been so bad that I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt as I don't know if I could say like a streaming option, but I guess that's kind of what he is. But he's not going to be ahead of Stafford or Fields. For me, he's not going to be ahead of Jordan Love. I don't think he's going to be ahead of Jared Goff, Sam Howell, or Russell Wilson, but that's the range, those three.
All right, CJ Stroud missed practice, but he's making progress. But as of now, we don't expect Stroud. We don't expect Nico Collins. Running back news. It's starting to get pretty serious here for some players who didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday. One of those guys is Devon Achane. And we see a lot of guys get in the practice on Friday, and they're fine. So, hopefully what we'll know during our mailbag episode, which we record around noon on Friday. But Achane missed practice. A.J. Dillon has a broken thumb, and Aaron Jones is optimistic about playing on Sunday. And Dillon hasn't ruled himself out. Still no Brian Robinson. Jonathan Taylor's out. Is Jonathan Taylor officially out?
Yes.
Alexander Madison is officially out. Those guys play on Saturday, Taylor and Madison. Pacheco missed practice. So it looks like Jerome Ford's going to play. But, yeah, I mean, when we look at Gibson, Zach Moss, I'll consider him still a backup running back, and Ty Chandler. Rank them, Jamie.
Moss, Chandler, Gibson. But I like all three.
And how would you rank Aaron Jones if A.J. Dillon does not play and Aaron Jones does play against the Bucs?
He'd be right there with them. Probably behind Moss, ahead of Chandler and Gibson.
All right. Wide receiver. Chris Godwin has missed 2 practices. Chris Olave has missed 2 practices. I mean, we're going to talk about these games so we can talk about the in or out scenarios. Rashid Shaheed looks like he's going to play against the Giants, but Olave, maybe not. He's got an ankle issue. Not expecting Nico Collins. Noah Brown has been limited, so he looks like he'll play, but probably with Davis Mills. Tyreek Hill has not practiced yet. We said yesterday that Hill expects to play, but he hasn't been out there. Marquise Brown, however, DJ Moore, these guys have been limited, so they look good. Devontae Parker and Demario Douglas, they've been limited. Douglas has not cleared the concussion protocol yet. We'll keep an eye on that. Christian Watson missed practice again. It does not look like he's playing, but Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks, they both practiced. And Deontay Johnson's off their injury report. Tight ends. Dalton Schultz is almost certainly going to play. Taysom Hill has been limited in practice. Darren Waller. Are you guys ranking Darren Waller right now?
Not yet. He says he's hopeful to play, but if he plays, he'll be on a snap count, according to himself.
Okay. All right. So we can at least not start him, but he is a beat the waiver wire guy, gets the Eagles next week, and he's about 56% rostered. Dalton Kincaid has been limited with thumb and shoulder issues. Hopefully he's fine. He should play against the Cowboys. Tyler Higbee limited, and Greg Dulcich is not going to play this week. Oh, that's right? Greg Dulcich, who cares? Right. Offensive line. I mean, there's some offensive line news. I'm not going to bore you with it. We'll just move on to the big defensive stuff. Still the Niners. Still beat up. Steelers got a lot healthier. Both of their starting edge rushers are going to play. TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. Highsmith missed almost all of last week's game. Houston still beat up. Tampa Bay. I think Tampa Bay really worth monitoring, especially from an Aaron Jones perspective. Vita Vea, Carlton Davis, cornerback, and safety Ryan Neal. They all missed practice, but they're getting healthier at linebacker. Devin White practiced in full. So did cornerback Jamel Dean. We already told you Cleveland's beat up. Denver's a little bit beat up, but I think Denver got some good news. Safety PJ Locke practiced. Yannick Ngakoue for the Bears. He's out for the season. I don't think that's a huge deal. Oh, Jair Alexander looks like he might actually play this week for the Packers. And yeah, all right, that's it. Let's do one question for each game. Sadly, skipped Baltimore-Jacksonville yesterday, so we'll do it today. Baltimore at Jacksonville, Sunday night. Dave, how much faith do you have in the Jaguars offense? And do not worry, there's only one game of the week, and it was yesterday. You're in the clear. How much faith do you have in the Jaguars offense against the Ravens?
I'm okay with Trevor Lawrence as a low-end QB1. I'm okay with Travis Etienne as a RB2. I don't think you can get away from Etienne. I've got Ridley as a flex. Evan Ingram as a must-start tight end. He's been playing really well the last couple of games without Christian Kirk on the field. And I think they're going to end up throwing, and I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. Baltimore's defense is good, but I think Trevor Lawrence has been playing great lately. We saw the Rams take advantage of this Ravens defense last week. And so it's not like I'm super excited about these guys, but I recognize the potential that they have, and I want to make sure that they're in my lineup.
Okay. We're going to really dig into that game in a little bit. Denver's at Detroit. Jamie, who's more likely to score a touchdown? David Montgomery or Cortland Sutton?
Both.
Yeah, I think that was a fun question. Here's a better one. Do you trust both Lions running backs against the worst run defense in football and a team that gives up a lot of receiving yards to running backs?
I am doing a Saturday DraftKings lineup as we speak, and I have both guys in the Saturday lineup. So, yes, I feel confident in both. I think that's where they win. That's why I don't really love Jared Goff this week. I think it's going to be a lot of the running backs as Dan Campbell tries to take some pressure off his quarterback. So expect a lot of gives, expect a lot of Montgomery.
Washington's at the Rams. I find Sam Howell to be one of the most fascinating players this year. Dave, how are you feeling about him? Starter sit Sam Howell, who has not scored 3 straight games with less than 20 fantasy points, despite 4 rushing touchdowns in those games. Starter sit Howell at the Rams.
Low-end QB1. I am cautious about just how many pass attempts he has, because the last time we saw him play, he had 23 pass attempts in a blowout loss against the Dolphins, where like they were getting blown out at halftime. You'd figure, okay, second half, Sam Howell's going to throw like crazy. They just stuck to like basic offensive play calling in the second half, and that's what killed Howell from not throwing 40 plus times. I think he'll throw a little bit more. I think that's where you attack the Rams defense. That's what the Ravens showed us last week. So I'm hopeful that he can get you right around 20.
I don't know if you remember. I think last year I had the dumbest segment. Surprise, surprise. It was the like, I got a feeling segment, and I did yeah, Black Eyed Peas. I got a feeling. I got a Terry McLaurin feeling.
Yeah, same.
You do? Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, a little squeaky wheel. You remember what he said after last week's game?
That's
last
exactly
game.
Cardio.
He said he was doing cardio. The Rams have been really struggling against receivers.
Yep.
He's due. But then again, like I know I don't want to recommend it. That's the problem. It's like, what do you do with that feeling when you have a player? He's not great.
He's definitely a starter in 3 receiver leagues, and you've most likely been starting him the entire season in that regard. It's a matter of, when you get to him versus, and you can debate this any which way you want to, but like him versus a Tyler Lockett or Jaden Reed or a Brandon Cooks, to go the other direction. Those type of guys, where Curtis Samuel on his own team, and just, guys who have been either producing more or have the chance to produce more this week. And how much would you be willing to sit McLaurin for those guys? So he's in that mix for sure. And I do think this will be one of his better games.
Question from the chat: McLaurin or Deontay Johnson?
See, in this case, I take a chance on McLaurin.
Same.
How about for me, McLaurin? And this is not for my team, but McLaurin or Beckham, or Zay Flowers?
I go Flowers, McLaurin, Beckham.
So I have it ranked. I do have McLaurin and Beckham back to back.
Okay. Tampa Bay is at Green Bay. How much do you like Jaden Reed in this game?
Like him a lot. Baby Debo.
I think he's got 4 or 5 straight games with less than 50 receiving yards. Just take away the rushing touch. Maybe we shouldn't. They give him the ball. Can't dismiss that.
Right.
But Jaden Reed or McLaurin.
I mean, he had 11 touches last week. Like, that's hard to overlook for a receiver.
And it makes perfect sense to give him the ball. No Christian Watson. Running game is beat up. Lean on this kid. He plays in the slot the most. That's where the Bucs have the most trouble defending the pass.
Yeah.
I think I've got him at 24. I think he's a top 24 receiver this week over McLaurin.
Okay.
Yeah, over McLaurin.
San Francisco's at Arizona. Which backup running backs, that have been thrust into bigger roles, would you start over James Conner?
Chandler, Gibson,
Moss.
Yeah.
Achane if he plays,
Zeke.
but I don't think that counts. Zeke.
He would be very close with Wilson.
With Jeff Wilson?
Yeah.
So that means we're sitting James Conner.
I would love to. Yeah.
I'm sorry. What is the status of Amari DiMercato?
He's been practicing.
Okay. Because Conner actually got a lot of third down work. He split it last game, week 13, because DiMercato left super early. But you should not expect him to be involved on third down.
Well, to that point also, this is now coming off a bye week where Michael Carter has gotten more time in the system.
Yeah.
So it might be just that role, not necessarily who's the guy taking it away from him. It could be Carter, it could be DiMercato, it could be both of them.
Well, that's who he split. He split it with Michael Carter in week 13. All right, Philadelphia at Seattle. Are you confident in any running back in this game?
Swift.
Yeah?
Relatively speaking, I'm confident in DeAndre.
Would you start those backup running backs, Zach Moss, Gibson, Ty Chandler over Swift?
Not all of them.
The only one might be Moss.
Moss and Zeke.
All right.
Zeke is a different. I don't view Zeke as a backup.
Zeke is
Okay.
No, I'm glad you brought it up. But Zeke's obviously, I know you guys have him ahead. Atlanta, Carolina. Who's the best flex out of this group? Adam Thielen, Chuba Hubbard, Drake London.
Depends on the format.
All right. Half PPR.
Chuba.
I think I want to take Chuba first. I think I want to take Thielen second, and then Drake London last. And I know that sounds so counterintuitive because Drake London was awesome last week. But I think the Falcons can win this game without Desmond Ridder even throwing 25 passes. So betting against high target volume for Drake London. And that Thielen will get you at least like 12 PPR points. That's what he does now.
Sometimes. I mean, he had 12 last week. The previous 2 games, he had a combined 7.7 at Tennessee and at Tampa Bay in 2 good matchups.
Yeah,
Falcons,
for me, Thielen's definitely last. It would be PPR would be London, Chuba, Thielen. In non or half, it would be Chuba, London, Thielen.
Yeah, I don't know if the Falcons actually have a good defense or it's just their schedule, but they are giving up the second fewest points to running backs and the third fewest fantasy points to wide receivers. Last game here, Giants at the Saints. Who would benefit if Chris Olave does not play?
The Giants.
Alvin Kamara.
Well,
usually
what about
the default is Taysom Hill just finds a way to get more touches if that were to happen. I think Rashid Shaheed's going to play.
Right.
So he might benefit a little bit. I don't know if you'd feel comfortable starting him beyond a flex. That's about it. I can't make the case for Juwan Johnson. Don't want to make the case for the other receivers that they have.
Yeah. All right. And we will break down the games in a moment. We also have Beat the Waiver Wire for you. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll tell you who to get for week 16 if you have a bye or just want to plan ahead. And we'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today. All right, let's beat the waiver wire. In shallower leagues, you can look at Geno Smith. I have him at Tennessee. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. Geno Smith, it just didn't feel like, why would Seattle be playing Tennessee? I don't know. Baker Mayfield against the Jaguars.
Yep.
Nick Mullins against Detroit on the lower end. Excuse me. Joe Flacco at Houston. Mitchell Trubisky's got the Bengals. And then the wild card is Zach Wilson against Washington.
Mitchell Trubisky against the Bengals?
Well, and I'm just looking at bad matchups or bad defenses. But yeah, Zach Wilson, I guess, would be ahead of Trubisky. But Zach Wilson against Washington could be interesting. But hopefully you can get Geno Smith, maybe Baker Mayfield. At running back, you could look at any of the Bears running backs against Arizona. Great matchup. So Foreman against Arizona might actually pay off. The Chiefs running backs against Las Vegas, assuming Pacheco. I don't know that he's going to miss next week. I don't know that he's going to miss this week. But, maybe, excuse me, Clyde could have a good game against the Raiders. It's tough to find beat the waiver wire running backs. This is a long shot, but.
Well, Jeff Wilson.
Yeah, Jeff Wilson, sure. This is a long shot, but DeAndre Swift has really been struggling. And if he has another bad game, do they give Kenneth Gainwell more work? Gets the Giants next week. At wide receiver, the first place I'd look would be Zay Jones and Parker Washington at Tampa Bay. Demario Douglas is at Denver. Arizona wide receivers are at Chicago. That's not a good matchup, but they are available. Not Marquise Brown, the other ones. Jonathan Mingo's been getting a ton of targets. And then how about Wan'Dale Robinson at Philadelphia? I mean, you never know which Giants receiver is going to be okay each week. And then Darren Waller, 56% at Philadelphia, is a tight end you could look at. DSTs, Denver at New England, I think is a really good one.
What about the Bills?
Yeah, they're 71. Bills are 71% rostered. They get the Chargers on the road, so that's great. Buffalo's the most available. I mean, Denver's the most available of the ones I was going to bring up.
And then Denver gets the Chargers the following week. So
yeah, there you go.
You can use Denver the next 2 weeks if you wanted.
Denver, the Bills, and the Packers.
The
Packers
Commanders.
Carolina. Commanders have who?
The Jets.
The Jets. And if anyone drops the Jets, they're widely rostered, but they're facing the Dolphins this week. You can take a look at them. Same with the Chiefs. Chiefs get the Raiders. I don't think we're buying the Raiders offense.
No, don't do it.
Don't do what? Don't buy the Raiders offense?
Buy the Raiders offense.
Yeah, okay. I don't buy their offense, but I don't know that they're a good matchup, that they're an easy matchup for a DST.
That might be fair, but you got to figure that they're feeling themselves a little bit. And depending on what happens to the Chiefs this week, going into Arrowhead, that could be bad.
Oh, yeah. All right, Baltimore's at Jacksonville. Yeah, I'm excited for this one. So Lamar Jackson is a roller coaster ride, but he is, last I checked, number 2 for Jamie and number 1 for Dave. Yep, and he's number 4 for Heath. So start Lamar Jackson. How about Keaton Mitchell? I can't imagine anyone wants to start Gus Edwards at this point, but does anyone want to start Keaton Mitchell?
He's a flex. I mean, look, it's not often you can find a player that's going to average 6 yards a carry, and he has the ability, one missed tackle and he's gone. Not a lot of work in the passing game, which is the frustrating thing because that's what you really need against the Jaguars because that's where the big production has come from. But if he gets maybe 2 or 3 catches and we see the Chase Brown play, for example, that could certainly be in his wheelhouse. I don't mind him as a flex, but you got to be in a spot where you need him as opposed to want to start him.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about these Baltimore wide receivers. You said you like Flowers over Odell Beckham. If I could guarantee you that Lamar Jackson was going to throw 30 passes, that is an automatic good game for Zay Flowers. But that is the problem here is we don't know if it's going to be a 28 pass attempt game for Jackson. That's pretty common, actually. So like or love Zay Flowers and Odell Beckham, Dave?
I like them. I think that, let me say that I like Zay Flowers and Odell's in that flex range. I like Odell as a flex. If what the Ravens showed us last week, that they're willing to let Lamar throw into a favorable matchup, if that's going to be how they're operating from now on, they're going to keep doing this against Jacksonville. Jacksonville's secondary is terrible. They're beat up. They had so many busts last week against the Browns. It's what made Joe Flacco look so good. I kind of like the opportunity that's there for the Ravens passing game to step up and put up some big numbers again.
Okay, would you start? I saw a question. Zay Flowers. Oh, here's some. Zay Flowers or Devon Achane was one.
I think there's Flowers.
I think there's more upside with Achane, but it's like you look at Flowers, 10 targets last week. Similar to Jayden Reed, they're doing different things to get the ball in his hands. He had a 37-yard touchdown run. Just the way the Ravens offense is operating right now. Not that the Dolphins offense, obviously, you don't want to judge them based on one game, but Achane still had so many opportunities in passing game last week. So I would lean Achane, but they're very close.
Flowers has 20 PPR points in each of his last 2, right?
Yeah, he's been
Am I
great.
crazy?
He's been great.
Does he? He had 6 for 60 and a touchdown. Did he have
And a
rushing
rushing
yards last week too?
He has 37-yard rushing touchdown last week.
No, 2 weeks ago. I
That
thought
was 2
against
games
Chargers.
ago.
Oh.
Yeah. Beckham or McLaurin. So we answered that earlier. It's McLaurin by a nose. Gus Edwards or Jalen Warren? We have a question.
Warren, there's more upside.
Agreed.
Zay Flowers or Rashee Rice? PPR.
Rice,
but those guys are very close for me.
Okay. People are saying, or person is saying that it's going to be windy on Sunday in Florida. I think let's wait a little bit. It's only Friday, and that's kind of hard to predict. But we'll update you on the weather on Sunday morning.
It's definitely windy now.
Beckham is number 3 receiver, and Heath actually has him a little bit lower than that. Number 4 receiver. Okay, Isaiah Likely. Someone you have him ranked. You have basically Likely and Goddard, I think, are like back-to-back, right?
Yep.
Just randomly bringing up Dallas Goddard. But they are low-end starters. I know Likely's coming off the big game, but he had a huge catch on busted coverage. Jacksonville gives up the 8th most fantasy points to tight ends. So low-end starter will compare Likely to more players throughout the show. All right, Trevor Lawrence. So I guess if I were going to say, here's what concerns me about Lawrence. It's that the only time he's been good in a tough matchup was last week. He scored 23.4 fantasy points. And it may not have even been that tough of a matchup because they were missing Denzel Ward, and he threw 50 passes to get 23.4 fantasy points. So that's kind of been the problem with Ridley and Lawrence. It's just, who his big games come against? Cincinnati, garbage. Houston's okay. Tennessee. So he hasn't proven it in a game like this against the Ravens. Question is, how good are the Ravens? Is Kyle Hamilton going to play? What the hell happened to them last week? They're on the road on a Sunday night. So that's where I'm coming from. That's why it's a little bit of a conundrum. But personally, I would like to not have to play Trevor Lawrence this week, guys. Dave, you already spoke about it. Jamie, you can get in there too. But Jamie, what do you think?
I kind of like the setup because I think the Ravens are going to score on them. So I think we are going to see him have a high volume of pass attempts, which has kind of been when he's been at his best. He played this defense last year, had 30 fantasy points against them in his building right around the same time. That's when he kind of got going, if you recall, that little stretch run when he was like, oh, wow, Trevor Lawrence is actually a decent fantasy quarterback. It was in November. So is he going to continue this streak of 23 plus points? I think that's a safe range for him to get to if he's going to throw that many times. The fact that he practiced in full is encouraging with the ankle injury. I would love it more if he had Christian Kirk, but Zay Jones beat up this team last year too, so there'll be some downfield throws. I think it's a shootout, so I'm excited to see how this game will unfold. I'm struggling with Lawrence versus Love. I think there's more upside with Lawrence. Love is certainly safer. If Love were to get Christian Watson back, I would make that switch, but I think you're going to see a big game from Trevor Lawrence personally. So I'm looking forward to seeing these two quarterbacks go head to head.
Dave, you are alerting us that there is some bad weather in the forecast for this game, so that could change everything. But we're not gonna preview it as such right now.
There's gonna be bad weather for Baltimore Rams last week too.
Yep. And it wasn't great. I mean, there was kind of bad weather. It just wasn't
right. It didn't matter.
Game right. All right, Dave. So Jamie's thinking shootout and a good game for Lawrence. Are you also thinking that?
I am. I think what I'm struggling with is how high should I rank Travis Etienne? Because I know what his potential is. He obviously can break one and have a big game. And he's been doing a lot more in the passing game lately. But I think this all falls on Lawrence's shoulders again. It looks like the offensive line is going to be a little bit healthier than it was last week. I think Lawrence will be healthier than he was last week. He got off to a terrible start. He was way off target. Once they shortened his throws in the second half, he played a lot better. And I think he's connecting with Evan Ingram in a big way. I think he's still actually working on it with Calvin Ridley, and that kind of sucks. But I think he's going to throw a lot. And so there's potential for him to have another solid game. He's had really good games lately. I've got him 10th. And I do like Love better. The difference for me is that Love, question marks about his run game, and he's playing Tampa. And so that matchup is just too alluring for me, even without Christian Watson there.
ETN or Zeke?
I have Zeke higher.
I'll take ETN in non-PPR, but Zeke in full and half.
Okay. Yeah, you could usually get you almost always get 3 or 4 catches almost every week for Travis Etienne. So you will get that most likely. And the Ravens' run defense is good. It's not great. So Etienne, or if he plays Devon Achane.
Etienne.
I have Achane a spot higher.
Okay. Etienne or Zay Flowers, PPR.
Etienne.
Like I'm waffling a little bit on it. I'd have Etienne higher, but that's where I'm at with Etienne. I'm nervous about him having 15 PPR point upside.
All right. So here's my question. If you think it's going to be a shootout and you are somewhat confident in Trevor Lawrence to have him close to 10th in the top 12 anyway, why is Calvin Ridley outside your top 24, Jamie?
Well, as we saw last week, I mean, he can get 3 touchdowns without Ridley having a big part of it. So I actually like the setup for Zay Jones if you're looking for a sleeper receiver for this week. I like how he how many targets he got in that matchup last week. I think that's going to be somewhat of a staple, not 14, but probably 8+. And so the way that he's using Ingram, the way that he's going to integrate Zay Jones more without Christian Kirk there, the way that Ridley will still get production. It's not like you're sitting Calvin Ridley in 3 receiver leagues. It's just we've seen the pitfalls for him. So I'm starting Ridley in all my 3 receiver leagues where I have him. If I had him in a 2 receiver league, it would just come down to what I have as a flex and what I have as the other receiving options.
Where would you rank him if he had scored last week?
Same place, right around 27, 28, 29, 30.
I agree. And he almost did. He was a yard short on a catch. He had another
That's the
end zone
season.
target that was overthrown. I'm not terribly worried about him. And I like the idea of adding Zay Jones, but not starting Zay Jones unless you're desperate. They play Tampa next week.
Right. And then Evan Ingram is basically back to being a must start. He had those 2 terrible games. They were against really tough opponents, San Francisco and Tennessee. Baltimore, they are 9th best against tight ends, but you look at it, it's not their strength. I mean, they're not. I don't know that this is a tough matchup for Evan Ingram.
Well,
So.
I think the targets are safe without Kirk there. That's kind of been he's kind of been the de facto Kirk replacement as the middle of the field option, which is not surprising. And then you look at the fact that he's finally getting the end zone targets. It started with what was the game before the Bengals? Tennessee game?
Yeah, maybe. I don't remember.
Tennessee, Houston, Cincinnati. So it wasn't the Tennessee game. I'm wrong. It's Houston.
All right. Well,
okay,
Houston.
So it was the Houston game, and they made a point on the broadcast to say, Trevor Lawrence knows that Ingram doesn't have a touchdown, and he had an end zone target that he missed him on. And so it was like you know that it was coming. I think I told you I made a trade for Ingram looking at his upcoming schedule, and I was very excited about that and just the way that he's performing. So he's not somebody you should fear really at this point, I think, with any matchup as long as Kirk is out, which he's out for the rest of the season.
Plus, the Rams basically had the Madden generator make a tight end last week, and that guy had a big game against the Ravens.
So last question here. If you like Ingram, Etienne's a number 2 running back. Lawrence is a low-end starter. We're expecting a shootout. Why are the Ravens DST? Why is the Ravens DST ranked top 6 for you guys?
Well, you still saw Trevor Lawrence last week with a 3 touchdown game with 3 interceptions. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a little inconsistent, and they'll sack him.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it's like I have 1 league with the Ravens, and I'm so glad I have a bye because I just want to see what they do. If they have another bad game, I might start to lose a little bit of faith.
Well, you can't start them next week, right?
49ers, right? Yeah. No chance.
I dropped them for the Raiders last night. I was very thrilled with that.
Oh, nice. Okay. I think that is it for that game. Let's go on to Denver at Detroit. Stat of the game. The Detroit Lions have allowed 8 touchdowns to wide receivers in their last 5 games and 13.4 or more PPR fantasy points to 8 wide receivers in their last 5 games, which is not exactly the greatest wide receivers. I mean, the Chargers, Bears, that's pretty good. Chargers, Bears, Packers, Saints, Lions. It's a good match. Do matchups even matter for Courtland Sutton?
No.
I don't think they do.
Sutton or Flowers?
Sutton.
I have Sutton higher.
All right. I'm going to try to simplify this game here. We're starting both running backs. Do you have any hesitation with Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's coming off his 2 worst games of the season, and now he's facing this terrific defense?
Not to sit him. I think if you have a stacked team, you might consider benching him. But I mean, you got to really be stacked. Like I'm not starting Jaden Reed or Zay Flowers over him. I'm not starting Rashee Rice over him. Guys that have been playing well lately. You just got to hope that Jared Goff at home figures it out a little bit. And I'm not sure that he will, but I hope he will enough that St. Brown and Laporta can still have success because those are the two guys in the passing game that matter here. But I really do think that we're going to see a lot of Jahmyr Gibbs, a lot of David Montgomery, and look, St. Brown's had some touchdown luck lately that has sort of negated a couple of his bad games. So you just got to hope that maybe the Broncos offense shows up to a higher degree than we've seen, and that the Lions are really behind, and we see a lot more of Jared Goff throwing, like we saw in that Bears game a few weeks back. We saw it against the Saints a little bit. They have the ability to get there, but I don't know.
I do know that this Lions defense isn't that good. Over their past 5 games, they've allowed 6 touchdowns on throws of 15-plus air yards. That fits in nicely with Courtland Sutton and what he's capable of doing. Russ isn't throwing as deep as he used to. He used to do it a lot. He's kind of held back a little bit. I wonder if that changes for this game just because of the matchup. And last week, without Aleem McNeil for the Lions, their pass rush pressure rate, it was 35%. It was their lowest of the year, or one of their lowest of the year against Chicago. And so I think Russ is going to be able to put up some decent numbers in this game. I think it could end up being a high scoring game.
Russ or Goff? I'm sorry if you said this. Russ or Goff?
Well, I have Goff a spot higher because his offensive line's healthy, and I think it could be a little bit of a shootout, and I'm almost positive he will throw more than Russ. To me, the offensive line is the biggest thing for Goff. Ragnow being back, Decker being healthy. These are huge things. Benito's not playing for Denver. He's basically their second best pass rusher. I think that that's important for Jared Goff to have success. He needs that working for him, that O-line.
9 games in a row with quarterbacks under 20, including Josh Allen, including Mahomes twice, CJ Stroud. I mean, they've been really good. It's hard to overlook that. Herbert was on his way to a bad game.
Herbert was horrible when he got hurt. What did he have? He had 96 yards and 1 fantasy point on 17 pass attempts last week. All right. So do you like both Detroit running backs over Javonte Williams? And again, Dave just mentioned Aleem McNeil not playing and hurting their pass rush. He also hurts their run defense, his absence. So it's not as tough of a matchup as it used to be, I think, for running backs against the Lions. But would you start both Montgomery and Gibbs over Javonte Williams?
Yes. And I think the two things are sort of independent of each other. Yes, the Lions running backs are better and should be started over Javonte Williams. That doesn't mean you sit Javonte Williams, though. I think it comes down to, again, who do you have? Like, I like Ty Chandler a little bit better because I think his situation for this week is a little bit better. But they're, half dozen, six one, half dozen the other. If you want to start one, start Williams just because you have him. I like Gibson a little bit better because I think his role in the pass game is going to be there. The thing about Javonte Williams is the touchdowns have escaped him for one reason or another, and so will he score? That's always the concern, and so he could have a 80-yard day on the ground, a couple catches for 20 yards and still not score. And that's really an empty stat line for you. So those are the things that I fear with Javonte Williams.
I feel like we could say the exact same thing about Chandler and Gibson. Like that's
Gibson's
why they're
also going to get 4 to 5 catches. There's no doubt about that.
Sure. With Gibson. Yeah. But Javonte can get you 3 catches as well. I'm worried a little bit about just how much work Javonte is going to get. Certainly compared to Chandler. It wouldn't surprise me in the least if Chandler had more touches.
Unless they're getting blown out like they were recently. Was it the Houston game? No, it was the Minnesota game, and they actually won the game, but they fell behind, and he only had 11 carries. He usually gets a good amount of carries, 17, 18 carries.
Yeah, I'm not worried about his workload. For me, it's the touchdowns.
Yeah. And then
I think he's a very safe number 2 running back this week.
He also, just to say it, he just hasn't been good this year. Javonte's averaging 3.8 yards per carry. He has a long of 21 yards. So even with, he's unlikely to get you 80 yards. It's certainly unlikely to get you 100 rushing. Okay. Denver wide receiver Sutton is 17th, something like that. Or 17th in non-PPR, about 20th in full PPR. Tight ends, no for Denver. Yes for Sam Laporta. Sam Laporta or Evan Ingram this week?
Laporta, but it's close.
I've got Ingram.
All right. And Amon-Ra, I think that's it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Good. All right. So I'm sorry. Where is Amon-Ra St. Brown like a top 8 receiver for you this week still?
Right
I
in that
think
range.
he's actually outside of my top 8, top 12.
All right. So there are some scenarios where maybe you could sit him, but we still have faith in Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is,
Sure.
I believe,
Puka,
top 8 for you.
Pittman, Evans, guys that were drafted after him. You can start those guys over.
Mm-hmm.
Same.
All right. Sit the DSTs in that game. How about Washington and the Rams? We'll talk about our start of the week, Matthew Stafford, in just a little bit. Here's your stat. This is one of the reasons why I got a feeling about Terry McLaurin. In their last 4 games, the Rams have allowed double-digit fantasy points to 7 wide receivers and 14.8 or more fantasy points to 4 wide receivers in the last 4 games. And those 4 are Metcalf, Marquise Brown, Odell Beckham, and Zay Flowers. We have seen the Rams' pass defense get worse as the season has gone on. But obviously, I understand he's not easy to trust. And we've talked a lot about McLaurin. Sam Howell, I know I asked you earlier. I'll ask you. I don't actually know if I did these 2. But Sam Howell versus the 2 that we just talked about, Goff and Wilson.
Yeah. Howell for me. Much more upside.
I think I have Goff first, Howell next, Russ third.
Howell has scored more than 20 fantasy points in only 2 of his last 7 games. But the 2 that he scored more than 20, 39 points against the Eagles and 30 points at Seattle. He's just fascinating to me.
Yeah, and the fact that you brought up the 4 rushing touchdowns is interesting because that's not something that he's done from a touchdown perspective. I actually thought he would run more this year than he has. But I think, let me look. The over-under is 50.5. I believe it's the highest scoring projected game for the week, or it's not. It's Philly-Seattle. We're going to see a lot of offense in this game if things hold. You don't have to worry about weather. You have defenses that have certainly been susceptible to a lot of big games. We saw it for the Rams last week with what Lamar Jackson did against them. Not that Sam Howell's in that neighborhood, but he has the chance to throw the ball back to 42 plus times, which is what he's done every game prior to last week, since about the middle of the season. I think how I feel about the Rams this week, so I'm expecting them to score and put them in a situation where they're chasing points. And you take away potentially Brian Robinson, who is their, this is not a disrespectful thing, but their plotter as a running back, and put a little bit more of a passing back situation, an airback, if you will, on the field. So we'll see maybe some, just more different creative designs from Eric Bieniemy and allowing them to throw the ball more. So I think Howell's going to actually be a decent option this week if you're stuck at quarterback.
Cool. And let's talk about Antonio Gibson here. By the way, the Bills Cowboys game is also, from what I'm seeing, at 50.5. Same total as
right. I forgot that one. Yeah, sorry.
Eagles are something like 47.5. Eagles Seahawks. Okay, Antonio Gibson, first 4 games of last year before Brian Robinson. I think he was out for those 4 games.
He was coming back after being shot.
Right. I think he just missed those first 4 games, though.
Yes.
Or did he play? Okay. Those first 4 games, Gibson had 12 to 14 carries in every game. And he didn't have as many catches as you might think. He scored 20 points, 12.1, 11, and 9.3 PPR fantasy points. So what do you think?
Wentz, right?
That was at least the first 3. Yeah, that was definitely with Wentz. So what do you think the 12 over under 12 PPR fantasy points for Gibson?
I think he got you at 11.9 last week.
Last game?
Yeah, that looks about right.
And that was the game where Robinson left and he had 10 carries.
Yep.
So I think I'll take the over.
He had 11.2 in his last game. He's had that or more in 3 of his last 4.
And the one that he didn't was the one that he got hurt.
Correct. Yep.
We haven't even mentioned Chris Rodriguez. He's not exciting, but he is going to be a factor. He had, I think, the same amount of carries as Gibson last week or 2 weeks ago when after Brian Robinson got hurt. But he has 1 target all season. But he will be he will play and he will get some carries.
He's a good desperation ad if you're looking for something, especially, want to beat the waiver wire for a guy that may have a chance here. And they do get the Jets next week if Robinson's still out.
And then the wide receiver. So we've talked a lot about McLaurin. I haven't even asked, is he your highest ranked Commanders receiver?
McLaurin.
It's McLaurin. It's close between him and Curtis Samuel in PPR, though.
Yeah. How about
I got 3 spots apart?
I think Jamie brought this guy up earlier. Tyler Lockett versus McLaurin and Samuel. How do you feel about that?
I like Lockett more, but those are Lockett. Oh, Lockett or Samuel or Lockett or McLaurin?
Go all
What's-
three.
Lockett, McLaurin, Samuel, but there's a little bit of distance between Lockett, McLaurin, and then Samuel. But I think I have like almost back to back of Lockett, McLaurin, and Beckham.
They're all bunched up and they're all flexes. I agree that Lockett is the best of them all.
He's annoying too. So up
Sure
and down.
is.
Starter sit Logan Thomas, the slumping Logan Thomas. Rams are an amazing matchup though. Starter sit.
It's the only thing that holds him from even being in the conversation because he's been so bad for, many of his most recent games. I've landed on sit for Logan Thomas. It's hard to trust the match. He's had good matchups earlier this year, and Sam Howell doesn't locate him. He's going to other receivers. I think Curtis Samuel is a part of that. I think Antonio Gibson can be a part of that. So I'm sitting Logan Thomas.
I think obviously you would prefer to sit him, but if you are desperate for a tight end, you just play the matchups and hope that he does come through because the Rams have just been so beautiful for opposing tight ends.
Isaiah Likely, Dallas Goedert, Logan Thomas.
He's last.
Yeah, Thomas is behind those guys.
Cade Otton.
But I would start Thomas over Pitts this week.
I got him
Okay.
back to back. I have Pitts a spot higher. I don't love either one.
How about Cade Otton or Tyler Conklin?
Conklin, Thomas, Otten.
Yeah, Thomas over Conklin for me. Again, play the matchups.
All right, Matthew Stafford is 5th or 6th for Dave and Jamie. I don't think we have to talk about this anymore. Start Matthew Stafford. I picked him up in one league. I'm starting him over Trevor Lawrence and Jordan Love.
Love it.
Let's go. Kyron Williams is top 3 in both formats, and Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua are must starts. Do it up. Who do you like better?
Puka, but I've got them both as top 12 guys.
Would love to get a few more targets for Puka. I mean, he's 7 to 9 targets in 6 straight games. There's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of it is 7. 7's not great.
Unless you're Monica.
Yes. Well, that was awesome. Great. I saw one of my least favorite episodes last night. I was watching the one where Ross and Rachel get married in Vegas. I just hate that whole episode.
Why?
Because Joey has the really bad bit about the hand twin.
Oh, yeah, it's bad.
That's like really bad. And then would you start a Rams tight end? In the last 3 games, the lead Rams tight end has had 4 to 5 targets in each game, but 3 touchdowns in those 3 games. No, sit him.
Yeah.
The Rams tight ends?
Yeah.
Again, if you're stuck, Davis Allen's interesting if Higbee's out, but it sounds like Higbee's trending in the right direction.
All right, we're going to take a break here. We got Tampa. We got the Bay. Battle of the Bays when we come back. Baywatch when we come back on Fantasy Football Today. Welcome back. Baywatch. I called it Baywatch. I've never seen Baywatch. I got to tell you.
What?
I was too young for Baywatch. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
What a
you watch
premise. I watched Monk, yeah, but not Baywatch. Monk, man, like when I was in New York City in my early 20s, my Friday night, I would DVR Monk, and I couldn't wait to get home from whatever stupid plans I had on Friday night that I wasn't enjoying to watch the new episode of Monk. That is so sad. Oh my God. Tampa Bay at Green Bay. Do you like Baker Mayfield?
He's all right.
He watched
think-
Baywatch, I'm sure.
No question.
He's
started
he's
if you
younger
wanted
than
to.
I. He didn't even know Baywatch. He watched the stupid Zac Efron movie. Is that no? Was that what it was? Yeah.
Zac Efron was in the Baywatch movie.
Oh, that was a bad movie.
It was
How do I
terrible.
know?
Anyway,
He's a high-end QB2. I like the Goff, Howell, Russ group ahead of him. I like Flacco ahead of him. I'm a little worried about the upside just based on how he's been playing lately. You mentioned that Jair Alexander could be back for Green Bay. I'd like to know if their front seven's healthy. If they're healthy, that makes it harder on Baker.
Yeah, Quay Walker's practicing.
Yeah, that's bad. It's bad for Baker. It's
all right.
for
Let's
the
just
Packers.
start Rashad White. Start Mike Evans. Right.
Absolutely.
All right. Godwin hasn't practiced yet, but I can't imagine we're going to start him if he plays. Cade Otton, or let's say you have Pat Freiermuth or Cade Otton. Who would you go with?
Pat.
Otten.
Oh, okay.
They're
Disagree.
both tight end twos. Tucker Kraft to me is like a safer bet for 10
Yeah,
PPR points than both those guys.
And Logan Thomas over those guys for sure.
Agreed.
All right, and there's some reason to think that Jordan Love can bounce back. He was bad last week, no question. Was it the Christian Watson thing? Was it the Giants? Was it the weather? He just was off target. There appeared to be some wind in that game. But Tampa Bay is kind of a layup. They're a really good matchup. And he all season long, that has just been the thing with him. He's just been really good in easy matchups. So he's about a top 10 guy, around 10th overall. Jordan Love. I think I saw Love or Kyler Murray.
Love.
Yeah, Kyler's going to be tough to trust this week. And yes, I did watch Blossom back in the day. People are asking. But that was really, I think my sister watched it. I would watch it with her. Don't know about the future. Packers running backs. That's the themes. That's the weirdest theme song. Remember they used to have, every show used to have a great theme song. Those days are done. Dave, how do you feel about the Packers running backs with or without A.J. Dillon?
Not great. I'd almost prefer that Dillon not play, because then Aaron Jones, we'd have some confidence in him to be a number 2 running back and get work in the passing game. That would help Jordan Love quite a bit. So if it's just Aaron Jones and he's sharing with Patrick Taylor, I think that he's good enough to be a top 24 running back. But if there's both of them, Jones and Dillon, probably not going to want to start either one. And if it's Dillon with a broken thumb and no Aaron Jones, he'd be a desperation running back starter.
Is there a must-start running back this week that just has a terrible matchup? Would it be ETN? But I don't know if that's even a terrible matchup. Like Mixon. I can't say Ken Walker because he is not a must-start running back at this point. Mixon against the Vikings, yeah. So would you start Aaron Jones or Joe Mixon?
Mixon.
Agreed.
Okay. All right. And then do you want to start any Packers receiver other than Jaden Reed?
Dobbs in 3 receiver leagues. And look, most people are going to start Reed in 3 receiver leagues. I don't think many people at this point are starting him in 2 receiver leagues yet. At this point, hopefully you don't have to. I mean, look, he's been very solid, but like you said, a lot of it has been, I don't want to say fluky, but fluky. I mean, when you're getting rushing touchdowns from a wide receiver, it's not something you can bank on unless you've seen it over and over and over again, like Deebo Samuel. So I can sit here and joke, call him baby Deebo, but he's got to do a little bit more before that, is considered the norm. But I think Dave made a great point. The run game is struggling. How much that would change if Aaron Jones plays with or without A.J. Dillon, I don't know if that matters. And it's such a great matchup against Tampa Bay. So if lost Nico Collins, didn't have Keenan Allen, Romeo Dobbs on your bench, that's pretty solid to plug in not only Reed but obviously Romeo Dobbs as well.
We have spurned a really fun TV conversation in the chat. Yes, of course, I remember the show Dinosaurs on TGIF. Not the mama. Come on.
Did you DVR that on your nights out too?
No, that show doesn't age well. Yeah, okay. Tucker Kraft is a low-end option. Dave already said he likes him better than Kate Otten. San Francisco is at Arizona. Stat of the game. Look, this is more of just an interesting stat of the game. George Kittle has one game this year with more than 6, but less than 13 PPR fantasy points. He almost never has an okay game. It is so strange with George Kittle. And his yardage, this is more of the stat of the game, but I don't want people to think I'm getting them away from George Kittle. His yardage is very much tied to Brock Purdy's passing yards, which is not necessarily the case for guys like Debo or Ayuk. Brock Purdy, basically whenever he throws for like 270 more yards, Kittle has a very big game, except for one time, which was actually against Arizona earlier this year when he had 9 yards. So Kittle, tight end's interesting, right? You got Laporta, you got Evan Ingram, you got Dalton Kincaid, you got Trey McBride in this game. How do you guys feel about Kittle compared to someone else that may have been picked up and being started now at some point this year?
I mean, I'm starting him.
Yeah.
I hate that he's seen 6 or fewer targets in 3 straight games, but I know what he's capable of doing, and I know that he's got upside. I've got to have a tight end who I absolutely have to buy into as being a high volume part of his offense to start over Kittle. The one I wrestle with is Kincaid, because Kincaid's been terrible statistically for his last couple of games, but I think the Bills are going to need him. He's certainly playing a lot. He gets just as many targets, if not way more targets than George Kittle. He gets more, and he gets 5 catches a game. So I in PPR, I kind of want to bank on Kincaid over Kittle.
Yeah, I'll take Kittle. There's just much more upside right now.
What did you say about McBride versus Kittle? Or did you?
I didn't say anything about McBride.
I'll take McBride over.
I would too.
So what did I say? The 49ers, what did they give? The second fewest points to tight ends or something? I don't know if that concerns you. The fourth fewest points to tight ends. Darren Waller was terrible against them. Jake Ferguson was terrible. Evan Ingram was terrible. None of those guys scored even 6 points against the 49ers. But that's not to say no tight ends have been good. Zach Ertz was pretty good, 6 for 53. But it's been pretty... Hawkinson had 11 for 86. I don't know if I mentioned Njoku. Njoku was horrible, too. He had 3 for 24.
I don't know.
This
This
is
guy's
good.
just at a different level right now, McBride.
Yeah, 9 targets in 3 of his last 4 games. 7 targets in each of the 4. Floor of 9 PPR points in his last 4 games. 3 with 13 plus.
Dave, you give it.
He's a must start. I know he's playing the Niners, and I know they're tough against tight ends. Look at how tight ends have been used in the Arizona offense all year long, regardless of quarterback. He's a must start.
Are you looking at the chat too, Jamie?
Yes,
Should I post it?
of course.
I cannot confirm or deny this rumor. Adam pulls his pants all the way down when he pees.
Who thinks of that?
I don't know. When I first started working at CBS, I was working like hours and like nobody was in, and except for like 2 other guys. And apparently, my one friend who was working there, he went to the bathroom back at the old office, and he came out of the bathroom. He goes, "There is someone in the bathroom who pulled their pants all the way down to pee and like lifted their shirt under their chin, like a kindergartner would do." So I guess someone out there does that as an adult,
Wow.
but not me. Yeah.
We once had somebody in our office fall asleep while pooping,
No way.
and
Yes.
somebody was in the bathroom
Someone who no longer works here.
and said to somebody, I think there's somebody sleeping in the bathroom, which started like a GChat IM chain, throughout the building. And I think there was like 10 or 15 people like standing outside the bathroom listening to this guy snore while he was pooping.
That is insane. I cannot wait to find out who did that. Dave, you gave a great stat about Brock Purdy. Should we be concerned at all about game script, this getting out of hand, and Purdy not doing that much?
No, because a 49ers quarterback has thrown under 30 pass attempts each of the last 3 games against Arizona, and all 3 times they had multiple touchdowns.
If you are facing Christian,
it's the MVP push for Purdy. I mean, he's gonna get opportunities to score.
Yeah, but also for McCaffrey. If you're facing Christian McCaffrey, I just want to remind you, we have great off-season content. You're screwed. He's going to score 40 points this week.
McCaffrey and the Raiders DST. It's over already.
Start Debo and Ayuk. We're good with them?
Yes.
Yes.
Debo over Ayuk.
You want to start any Cardinal other than McBride? Any Cardinal?
No.
Not really, no.
All right. Connor is around 24th, a little bit lower than that in full PPR. Would you start Jalen Warren or James Conner?
Connor, but they're close.
How about Seahawks running backs or James Conner?
Walker, Connor, Charbonnet.
That's how I have it.
Connor Charbonnet. Okay, and we'll wait and see. I mean, the Niners do give up some point, 24th against receivers. So do you think Marquise Brown in a blowout where may not be a blowout, but in a game that they're probably trailing, can he get 10 targets?
They're 12-point underdogs on the road. It's going to be a blowout.
You never know. That'll be a blowout.
I'm sorry, 12-point underdogs home. Excuse me.
So
it might be one of those games where like the final score, it's a 1-score game, but it's because Arizona scored like 10 or 11 points in the last 5 minutes to close the gap.
Yeah. Beckham or Marquise Brown?
Probably go Beckham.
All right. Let's go to the Eagles and the Seahawks. Start Jalen Hurts. Jamie, earlier you said you had some confidence in DeAndre Swift. Is that am I sort of misrepresenting that?
I'm starting him. I have more confidence in this week than I did last week. I didn't like him last week against Dallas. And so this week's matchup is much better. Seattle's really struggled against the run. I do believe that we'll see a more committed Nick Sirianni to a more committed Eagles offense to giving DeAndre Swift chances in the run game. I don't think they'll necessarily be way behind in this game like we've seen from them a few times recently against Buffalo and against Dallas. So yeah, I think that, and San Francisco. So I think this is an opportunity for DeAndre Swift to get right. Now, top 10 guy like we had him earlier this season when he was really clicking and playing at a high level, no. But in comparison to some of the guys we talked about, Zach Moss, Antonio Gibson, Ty Chandler, those type of guys, Ken Walker, James Conner, I think he's better than all those guys. So while he certainly performed worse in some cases than a lot of those running backs, I think this is a bounce back spot from this week against Seattle, and hopefully it's the start of a strong stretch run for him to close the season.
Instant trivia. How many running backs have had at least 15 PPR points against Seattle in their last 6 games?
5.
6.
Jamie said 6.
7.
Wow. I know, but he's just not playing well.
I think they want to get him going. I'm going to echo what Jamie said. They want to get him going. They want that element of their offense rolling as they get toward the playoffs.
He has been terrible. I mean,
yeah, I would take the chance on him. It's a much better matchup than what he's seen in at least 3 weeks.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's fair. The last time he had a really good matchup was probably the Chiefs, and he scored 19.7 fantasy points. He scored a touchdown in that game. All right. So, did you say, I'm sorry, Swift or ETN?
ETN.
I have ETN higher. Yeah, let's not make this out to be like DeAndre Swift is a must-start top 12 running back.
Someone's asking Swift or Pollard.
No, Pollard.
Okay. Swift or, how about Swift or Rashee Rice?
I might go Rice.
Swift and 9.5, Rice and full.
Start the Eagles wide receivers. Dallas Goedert is around 10th or 11th or 12th, right around there in the.
I'll tell you what, I was a little nervous about Dallas Goedert, and then I remember Jamal Adams may match up against him.
Yeah, it's just a matter of targets. He only had 4 targets last week.
Don't show pictures of my wife.
So stupid.
Oh, no.
Earlier, Dave said Geno Smith would be a top 15 quarterback if he plays in this game. If he plays, would you start Geno Smith or Kyler Murray? Geno Smith or Jared Goff?
Geno.
Goff, please.
Okay. Here's one.
Let's not forget, the last time we saw Geno was his best game of the season.
Yeah.
G.I. Joe, Thundercats, Transformers, or He-Man?
Oh, man.
Oh, Jesus.
G.I. Joe and Transformers are like 2 of my favorites.
I know.
I liked He-Man. I don't know why, but I was also big on Transformers.
Yeah, I'm going to go Transformers here. I hope everybody has seen the Masters of the Universe movie. Courtney Cox. Great movie.
Yeah.
Give me a reason to start a Seahawks running back.
What's Dolph Lundgren's best movies?
Oh,
Rocky IV obviously is one.
Rocky
of the universe for sure.
Over Rocky IV?
No. Rocky IV and the Expendables.
I would take He-Man over the Expendables.
Really?
For Dolph Lundgren.
Okay.
And probably Creed 2.
Oh, I never saw that. Actually, I saw 10 minutes. It was garbage.
Oh my God.
Creed 2. Anyway, give me a reason to start a Seahawks running back, but try to do it without laughing.
Kenneth Walker has breakaway speed. Philadelphia's run defense it's the best part of their defense. He had 4 catches last week. Might be able to find the end zone. I think he's still their goal line guy. And he could end up being around 12 PPR points.
Okay. Would you start Ken Walker or Chuba Hubbard?
I have Chuba higher.
Hubbard's been good. We keep crapping on him, but he's been good.
We're about to talk about
he didn't have the best game last week, but still.
19 or more touches in 3 straight games for Chuba Hubbard.
We've been saying it. He's their guy. He's Thomas Brown's guy.
Are you confident in DK Metcalf this week?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I'm playing in one matchup. The only reason I know this is because I played against the same opponent on the 3-touchdown DK Metcalf game that beat me. That's the only reason the guy beat me. And I'm playing against him again. Well, he's got to play the Eagles. I'm like, great. I'll lose to Metcalf twice.
Yeah. Well, he always struggles against good cornerbacks, but I don't know how good Slay and
I don't think we can call these guys good corners anymore.
All right, and then
not going into this game.
I'm so congested. All right, I'm gonna finish this game. Lockett's number 3 receiver. Sit the Seattle tight ends. Let's go to Atlanta.
But if you're stuck again, matchup Jackson Smith and Najigba. This could be another good game for him.
Atlanta's at Carolina, and a running back has scored 13.6 or more fantasy points in 6 of the last 8 games against the Falcons. But so much of that has been receiving because we know they haven't given up a rushing touchdown. That's not exactly Chuba Hubbard's thing. But Jamie, I'm gonna blow my nose. You tell me how you feel about Chuba Hubbard.
It would be ironic if Chuba Hubbard, of all running backs that they face this year, is the first one to score a touchdown against them. But he's been very good. 3 touchdowns in his last 3 games. He's getting the work, as we said. Thomas Brown likes him more than Miles Sanders. It just feels like that's been the case every time he's gotten an opportunity to call plays, certainly the last 3 weeks. And I think we'll just see what the Panthers have been trying to do. Develop Bryce Young to an extent, but also take some pressure off him by using Chuba Hubbard. And so in a low-scoring game, most likely, Hubbard will still get the opportunity to be around 20 total touches. When he's had work in the passing game, he's been good at that. That just hasn't been the norm for him. But yeah, it's a very good high-end flex, number 2 type running back, better than James Conner, better than Ken Walker, better than the Steelers guys, in that same mix with Javonte Williams and Ty Chandler and Antonio Gibson. You can pick them apart one way or the other. I think Hubbard's just been solid, and the work is definitely going to be there for him.
So I think it would be even more ironic if it was Miles Sanders and not Chuba Hubbard that scored the first touchdown against Atlanta. I think I am going to move Chuba down a little bit because the Falcons, it looks like they're going to get Nate Landman at linebacker and David Onyemata back at defensive tackle. Those guys were out last week. That made me more encouraged to start Rachaad White. If they're back, that's obviously something that could hurt the efficiency for Chuba.
All right, we're going to sit Ritter. We're going to start Bijan. This should be a great day for him. Tyler Algier probably gets 8 to 10 carries. He's had that in 4 straight games.
Might get you 6 points.
We're hesitant on Drake London. He's a number 3 receiver. Carolina, 5th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers, and they just don't get thrown on. Kyle Pitts is outside the top 12, just outside the top 12. Sit Bryce Young. Talked about Chuba. All right. Look, earlier in one question.
There's another good comment in the chat about what your rap name would be.
Oh, what would it be?
DJ Milk.
You find it or no?
No. Oh.
You got it?
MC Nasal. Yeah, I love it. Yo, what's up, everybody? Gonna drop another sick beat. And by sick, I mean like literally sick, under the weather beat right now on Fantasy Football Today. All right. No, earlier I asked you Thielen, London, Chuba Hubbard, and there was some disagreement there, but they're kind of all in the same range. But last week I didn't mind Thielen because the Saints struggle a lot with slot receivers, and he was okay. He had 5 catches for 74 yards, but the Falcons, 3rd fewest fantasy points to wide receivers. I think about, Mike Evans just had 1 catch for 8 yards. Even if he had caught the touchdown, it wouldn't have even been that good of a game for him. Garrett Wilson had 3 catches for 50 yards. Not to say everyone's been bad, but it's not a good matchup. All right, and fair enough. And then Falcons DST. Do you like the Falcons DST this week?
Love them.
Yes.
Carolina's allowed at least 12 fantasy points to DSTs. This is if you include yardage bonuses. In each of their last 7 games, Atlanta's scored at least 12 in 2 of its past 3. Carolina's offense is terrible.
Yeah, they really are bad.
I mean, it's really their best receiver is Adam Thielen. Their best running back is Chuba Hubbard. Their quarterback is struggling to see downfield. Their play calling is awful. Their play designs aren't good. And they're really conservative, even when they're down. It's really hard to trust anybody in Carolina. Hubbard at least gets the touches. Start the Falcons DST.
Try to end the show with some funny comments from the chat. Very good stuff. But let's go to the Giants and the Saints. Stat of the game. Travis Etienne and I got to double check this because it seems too good to be true. Travis Etienne and Bijan Robinson are the only running backs to score more than 14.4 PPR fantasy points against the Saints. And I was actually pretty surprised by Saquon Barkley's workload with Tommy DeVito. The Giants must just be playing like very slow football because he has 16, 13, 14, 12, and 20 carries in 5 games, 3-1, 4-1, and 3 catches. And he's actually had 2 terrible games with DeVito. You guys have him top 5 or top 6. There's any? Yeah. It's crazy. He's Barkley. I get it. But any hesitation at all?
I'm double checking your work because the Saints have allowed a touchdown to a running back in 5 of their past 7. and 4.8 yards per carry to running backs in their past 7. So the stat did not sound right to me.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, whatever. I guess I won't press you on it, but start Barkley.
Well, okay. So here are the results. You're right about Bijan and ETN, and they are the only two. I can't believe this. The only two with 15 plus in PPR. There was a game earlier this year where they took on Indy. Zach Moss had 14.4. Jonathan Taylor had 10.7. They took on the Lions earlier this year. Montgomery had 12.5. Gibbs had 6.4.
Yeah.
Chuba had 10.8 last week.
No, it's not a great matchup, and he's not getting. I don't think Barkley right now looks like a top 5 running back just based on the workload and the fact that DeVito doesn't really throw. Not that he doesn't throw to him, he doesn't throw at all. I don't think he's thrown more than 27 passes in any game, and I feel like this will be a pretty close game. Saints are 6-point favorites. I think I'd take the Giants there with the points.
I did.
Okay. All right. Whatever.
There's only been 9 running backs all year that have had at least 15 touches against the Saints.
I'm going to beat up defensively though, and he'll get involved in the passing game in this matchup. I'm
going to stop wasting time on Saquon Barkley. Who are the players that we need to talk about? Because I don't think anyone's starting DeVito or Carr. I don't think you can start Wandale. You can talk about Wandale, but who are the tough calls? Kamara's not one. Who are the tough calls, Jamie, that we need to talk about in this game?
I mean, you're starting Olave, obviously, if he plays, so you want to make sure he's out there. If he's out, then that changes things a little bit. I think if Taysom Hill plays, that's an interesting one by comparison to a lot of the tight ends we've talked about. Kincaid and Njoku, I think he's in that range. I would start Ingram over him, for example. Kittle over him, McBride over him. But, Taysom is going to get an opportunity here, especially if there is no Olave. So you want to keep an eye on Taysom's health. But really, I think that's it. And then for the Giants, you mentioned, I don't think you start Waller in his first game back, especially if he's going to be on a snap count. So he's in that Logan Thomas, Kyle Pitts group there, Tucker Kraft, so it shows you where Darren Waller should be in first game back. But you said it earlier in the show, he should definitely be rostered if you have the opportunity to pick him up. For Wandale for this week, you said it, slot receivers against the Saints. You've been saying it for several weeks now, and he's coming off a strong game. If the Saints offense shows up this week, which, hopefully will be the case for Kamara and a healthy Olave, and the Giants are maybe behind, then that should help Wandale quite a bit. He had that big catch in overtime, for example. So there's a lot to excuse me, the end of the game. There's a lot to like about what Wandale's role in this matchup could be. So, like, for example, I'm in a deep league where I'm down Nico Collins and my down Christian Watson. My receiving core is really beat up. I picked up Wandale Robinson. I'm going to start him, and hopefully he comes through.
All right, good luck, my man. If Olave plays, would he crack the top 12, top 15?
Top 15.
Okay.
It's a good week for receivers.
Saints defense. It is a good week for receivers. Yeah. Saints defense or Falcons?
Falcons.
Giants defense or Ravens?
Ravens.
Saints defense or Ravens?
Saints.
I have the Ravens higher.
Okay. Tell me if you agree with any of these. Adam is the type of guy who asks for a fork in a sushi restaurant.
Yes.
That is 100% true. I cannot use chopsticks. I have terrible fine motor skills. I was almost held back in kindergarten because of my fine motor. This is a true story. Fine motor skills, I don't have them. I can't use chopsticks. Can't do it. Adam is the type of guy who puts his last name on the back of all of his jerseys. Like
just Big Cane 2.
Yeah, just Big Cane. I wouldn't do that. Adam has already seen Wonka 3 times in theaters.
No. You won't go to movie theater.
I don't really do movie theaters. All right, thanks everybody. I appreciate it. We had a lot of fun today. Thanks for putting up with my with DJ. What was it? DJ.
Do you think for the mailbag, do you think Dan has seen Baywatch?
Do you think Dan has seen Christmas Vacation? No, I don't think he's seen Baywatch. He's too young. And he
hasn't seen Christmas Vacation?
He was supposed to watch it. I demanded that he watch it for last Friday's show. He came up with excuses. He better have watched it today. Oh, and by the way, there's nice weather today, so Dan actually asked if we could do the mailbag in the morning so he could go out and have like a fun day. And I told him no. All right. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you on the mailbag show. See you later.
Dan Schneier's Day of Fun.